welcome to another one-on-one program. Our very special guest is Cropover Ambassador, social media influencer, and co-founder of the Barbados magazine, and also the newest chair of LGBTQ plus group Equals Barbados, Luke Lascaris. Luke, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
My first question, and I'm sure a lot of people are asking this, why was it so important for you to take up the post as chair of the group Equals Barbados?
I chose to join Equals because I wanted to serve my community. That's fundamentally it. I thought it was important to be able to give back to my community in that type of way, to be able to offer my services with regards to influencing, with regards to advocacy, and just I wanted to help uplift my community too as well. And so I decided to throw my hat in the ring as chair.
For those who don't know, what is Equals Barbados?
Equals is a rights-based organization. It is a non-profit organization, non-governmental organization, and it works with advocacy with regards to health services, with regard to mental health services. It looks at providing a safe space, and it looks to be able to shape not just culture of Barbados, but the laws of Barbados too as well, to the benefit of the LGBTQ plus community, but also the wider human rights community.
You mentioned you giving back to the wider Barbadian community. How has the LGBTQ plus community given to you growing up?
I think it was important to have safe spaces as a queer person, to be able to sit down, you know, sometimes in a queer bar, sometimes with your community, to just be able to relax and let your hair down, be able to talk, be able to commiserate over experiences, to look back at the ways that you've been discriminated against and maybe find shared community in that, shared people who have quite similar experiences to you, and lighten the load in that way. I think community is important, and being able to be with my community, whether it's that they came through with regards to jobs, whether they came through with regards to opportunities, whether they came through with regards to support, whether that was physical support, whether that was emotional support, whether that was psychological, digital support. My community has given back in so many immeasurable ways that it would have been remiss of me not to be able to come and give back to my own community.
You've mentioned being discriminated against. Was that for you personally, and how have you overcome such challenges within a Barbadian setting?
Yeah, discrimination has been personal. I mean, I'm also acutely aware of my privilege. I'm a tall, dark-skinned black man. I'm aware that I can be imposing to some people, but then being perceived as queer, and I think many men across Barbados have faced this, whether they've been queer or not. Discrimination can be dehumanizing. It can be a slap in the face sometimes, whether this is racial discrimination or discrimination because you are perceived to be queer. It could be, yeah, it takes away from a person. It could be a lot sometimes mentally to overcome. Sometimes it could be microaggressions. Sometimes it could be overt. People screaming at you in the street and threatening to kill you. People threatening you online. It could be, it could take away a lot as a person. And so it's important to be able to have the space to navigate that, the community to navigate that, to be able to have people around you that can support you in that.
You've had some wins recently with this particular administration. How are you feeling regarding policy direction and suggestion by the Miamonte administration thus far?
So far, we've been hopeful. There have been some wins. Equals has done a lot of work in the background, working with regards to the Ministry of Labor, with regards to the Employment Act and the removal of discrimination where people can't be fired just for being queer. And there have been some wins as well with regards to the buggery law and the striking down of that buggery law and the gross indecency laws, and laws that often stigmatize queer people. And so we are hopeful with the Mahdi administration that they stick to the rule of law. They've been working with us so far in terms of that, but it also has been a lot of community-led, community-driven organization that has led to these changes. The Mahdi administration has remained true to following the rule of law, and we applaud them for that, but we also encourage them to go a lot further. There's a lot more that can be done in with regards to support for the community. And often we also want to point out that it's not just support for the LGBTQ plus community, it's broader human rights support that in the end ends up benefiting everyone.
There have been tremendous changes in terms of those who have been perceived to be from the LGBTQ plus community. Now persons can be a lot more open in who they are. What would you credit to some of those changes between 2010 and 2024 Barbados in terms of persons being more open to expressing their sexuality and who they truly are?
I credit that to increasing globalization, a younger demographic, becoming more aware. And there's that phrase from Austin Clark, I believe, growing up stupid under the Union Jack.
Yes.
And we've moved away from that. The younger generation has definitely moved away from that, and they've started to become, I've seen a phrase online, stronger under the trident. So a lot of those old ideas, a lot of colonial handed down ideas around those conservative ideologies we just don't, the younger generation just doesn't identify with them. And so we've started to move towards a lot broader thinking, a lot more progressive thinking. There's still a lot of work to be done. I think those ideas haven't been weeded out completely. But globalization and the internet has led to new thought. Even apps such as TikTok led people to new ways of thinking, led to new conversations. Even on Twitter, I've had conversations with people, and then they, by came to understand that this is a queer person and they're not the boogeyman that I've been thought to what queer people would be like. They
Right.
attack me, they come after me, they look at me, and it's like, this is a regular person just like me. And they experience the same challenges as I do. They think along the same lines. They're not that different from me. So that the internet space has created that arena for people to understand queer people.
So Luke, you have a solid presence on X, formerly known as Twitter, and a lot of youth look up to you, Gen Zs, millennials. Why do you think there's this respect given to you from the truth coming from some of your tweets?
Because I think people identify a lot with me, much like I would have said before. In coming into the space, it was incredibly toxic. When I first came on, people were like, nah. And especially to people who, at that time, I didn't see myself as being visibly queer or openly queer or as openly queer as I am now. And so it was tough to navigate. But then once I was able to establish myself within that sphere, and then you ended up becoming a thought leader. You say, okay, we think this about this. Like, these are my thoughts on reparations. These are my thoughts on health. These are my thoughts on economics. These are my thoughts on politics. And people turn to you because it's like, he's making sense. I identify with what he's saying, both Gen Z and millennials. I get it. He's rational. He's reasonable. He's also allowed to be human. So not every thought is going to be correct, or not every thought I'm going to agree with, but I can appreciate his stance. So I think that's what allowed people to connect with me. And I think that was the most important thing, the connection aspect.
Was there a particular strategy going into building out your Twitter account? Or was it simple ranting? I'm just here for the toxicity.
That's it. You got me. I'm just here for the toxicity. That was like, for when my friend would say the bands, you're here for the laugh, the jokes, the playing, the fun, the traditional Sunday chaos. You're just here for it all. But then you'd start throwing out ideas, and you realize people would connect with them, and they'd start to form conversations. Like, you don't set out to be with a deliberate strategy of, hey, I'm this person, I'm Lukeism. You set yourself out in a particular type of way. It was just people were able to identify and say, okay, I like this thought. You're jokey one day, you're cussing out people another day, but then you're serious another. So people like the dynamism of it.
Amazing. And I'm sure it has worked perfectly for you as co-founder of Bazode as well. Tell us a bit about Bazode for those who may not know about the magazine.
Bazode is such a pet project of mine. I absolutely do love it. I started it, I believe, around 2014, 2013. I used to do a previous magazine, Muse Caribbean, with my co-founder, Lennon Chandler. And we do these breakout summer issues because I wanted to focus specifically on crop over. So we do these breakout issues, we reach out to the bands, we shoot costumes. But then Muse wasn't the ideal space for Bazode, for what Bazode would later become, looking at the cultural aspects, looking at crop over as a whole, and not just the type of one-dimensional aspect of the costumes. So we did a breakout magazine from that summer half publication that became Bazode. And then we started off looking at the culture, looking at crop over. We wanted to have it initially as a digital archive of what crop over is, and to be able to explain to younger people too as well what crop over is, what it represents, especially because you'd go online you search, you could find any kind of thing about Jamaica, any kind of thing about Trinidad, but there was no definitive archive for Barbados and crop over. So we wanted to create that niche digital space that people could look and say, okay, this is what crop over is. This is what it looks like. This is what is Barbadian culture. And not just people within the diaspora, but younger Barbadians could come online and say, okay, they've distilled it for me, they've explained, I understand it a lot better.
What does Bazode mean, for those who don't know?
It is to be lost. You know, we were really inspired by the Square One song.
Okay.
You know, with outside saying the iron got me so bad, to be lost. To be really lost in it, to be caught up in the moment. And that's how we saw our involvement in crop over. You could get so lost in it, you could get so caught up in the moment, you could get just taken away by the music, the vibe, the culture, the food. Yeah, and we wanted something that would also, the same way that Square One was, where it was a Barbadian band, it appealed to the entire Caribbean. We wanted a word that reflected that too as well. So having Iron Bazzi come out to Square One and them singing that song, it being pan-Caribbean and as well as the diaspora, we said, okay, even though this is a French word and Barbados was only colonized by the English and this is more a word associated with Trinidad, we're going to take this and use this and attempt to apply it in this same pan-Caribbean type way, so that even, yes, it's Barbadian culture, but if you're from Trinidad, you want to learn, you can pick it up. And then we would start to expand into, we went into Trinidad, we did Jamaica Carnival, and you want to do all the other carnivals across the Caribbean. People could understand Caribbean culture, carnival culture, festival culture with crop over, and you could all understand it under the same umbrella with Bazodi.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And I'm not the only one. But were you expecting this level of growth where Bazodi is concerned?
No, not at all, at all, at all. I think we've gone spectacularly far. We've done amazing work. I could only give credit to the team, and people have come on board and helped shape it. We started off with both Lennon and I, and then Shakira has joined on. We have Chantal, we have Ocean, we have Nasir. We've had a lot of people who've come to work with us across the years, and it has made it quite better. Like the growth has been phenomenal. The response to as well has been phenomenal. So we tapped into a segment, a Barbadian identity with the culture and the entertainment that hadn't been looked at before, and so that gave us a real boost.
Amazing. You're also a crop over ambassador.
Yes.
What does it mean to you to be recognized in such a capacity?
I was honored, to be quite honest, from the first year. I think that was like 2 years ago that they first approached me. I was honored to be chosen as a crop over ambassador. I've always worked with the NCF from as far back as the late Simone Codrington, God rest her soul, but with Ashley Dyer, with Paula Jackman, we've done fantastic work together, and Carol, the CEO, Carol Roberts-Reefer, has been an amazing support. Yeah, so I was honored when they reached out and said, we want you to be a crop over ambassador. They saw the work that I've done within the cultural sphere, and they reached out, and we formed a bond that was really quite fantastic.
You've mentioned Bazode magazine, you've mentioned the inclusion of NCF within your work as well. What was life like growing up for Luke Lascaris that has contributed to who he is today?
That's an incredible question. I think that growing up, I was allowed a lot of freedom, a lot of sense of expression, not being hemmed in too much. Like the parental guidelines, yes, there was strictness, yes, but I was still allowed to grow and evolve as a person without being forced to go down a specific path. I had a very loving family environment. I was very understanding, very communicative. Came from a big family. My mom's family is